Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Evidence of widespread racial profiling by our police forces so many years after the Macpherson inquiry, institutional racism and the murder of Stephen Lawrence. But first up, we're discussing, of course, Brexit and David Davis's intervention in this debate, because it is quite a significant and serious intervention. David Davis, up until now, has not put his sights directly at the Prime Minister. He had, up until now, argued for a change of policy, not a change of leader. But this column he's written for the Sunday Times today appears to be an opening gambit, or at least an opening shot fired. It is quite savage in its tearing apart of Theresa May's checkers plan. I want to hear from you what you think. Has Theresa May reached the end of the road? Now, whenever I hear that phrase, I think of the song End of the Road, but, you know, some of you may not have my similar music taste, but it does appear to me to be like that Theresa May, the Prime Minister, is going to be unable to hold her party together and will face a challenge. And the reason is because, of course, the checkers proposal that she wants to push through doesn't satisfy Brexiteers, and it probably won't satisfy, most likely, won't satisfy Remainers either. And so she will be left friendless within her own party. Now, David Davis, in his column, let me just tell you basically what it's about, has identified certain flaws that he believes are so fundamental in Theresa May's checkers plan that they are, he believes our constitution is in danger. What he has called for is he's called for a collective cabinet uprising against Theresa May's checkers proposals because, he says in his own words, this is one of the most fundamental decisions that government has taken in modern times. That part is true, at least. It is time for the cabinet, he says, to exert their collective authority. And now that sounds like a call to arms. And then he continues, this week, the authority of our constitution is on the line. Now, that may sound like hyperbole, but I must say that if Theresa May doesn't get, and this is me as a Remainer speaking, if Theresa May does not get the Northern Ireland border question resolved, then it could well have long-term constitutional impact on the lasting effect of our union. And when I say to our union here, I mean the United Kingdom as a union. Now, part of the problem, and David Davis's critique, which I think here is quite solid, even though I'm a Remainer, I can see the holes he's poking into Theresa May's plan. They kind of make sense. One of them is the following. He says, look, if you agree to sidestep the Northern Ireland border question by saying to the European Union that we'll stay in the customs union, and by staying in the customs union, we delay the solution over the Northern Ireland border problem by saying, actually, it doesn't matter. We won't have to impose tariffs from the Republic of Ireland going into the United Kingdom's region of Northern Ireland because we stay in the customs union, so we resolve that problem by just fudging it. Now, David Davis's critique is, well, how long are you going to do that for? Who decides when and what time frame you need within which to work out a solution to that border problem? He's saying if the European Union are the ones who have the decision, if they are the ones who can decide how long that customs union as a so-called temporary arrangement can last, if it's not us we can decide that, but it's the European Union who can decide it, then we are locked into the customs union for a period that is out of our control. Now, what's the Brexit problem with that, you may wonder? So what, you may think? Well, keep in mind the following, that especially on dairy and generally on agriculture, the whole purpose of the customs union is to charge tax on goods that come from outside the European Union, and wherever they enter, whether it be Spain all the way down in the south or Scotland all the way up in the north of this union, the European Union, we will end up, because of the customs union, we say we charge the same tax on, especially high taxes on dairy and agriculture. Now, the problem the Brexiteers have is if we delay resolving the Northern Ireland border question and agree to remain in the customs union indefinitely and hand the power to Brussels to decide when they think we can leave the customs union with no say over it, no veto over it ourselves, then we have surrendered for an indefinite period and potentially forever the ability to negotiate our independent trade deals with the rest of the world, which is what Brexiteers would argue the only reason we wanted to Brexit. So they're saying if that's the thing we surrender, that we will be unable to negotiate our independent trade deals with the rest of the world, because to resolve the Northern Ireland question, we've stayed in the customs union, and therefore, obviously, by definition, if we're in the customs union, you can't undercut it with cheaper taxes to the rest of the world for the United Kingdom, right? And then they're saying you've just taken away the main benefit in their eyes of Brexit. So if you think of it from their perspective, that's a red line that it's simply impossible for them to allow to be crossed. Now, that's the Brexiteer objection. And if you, as I say, if you're in their camp, it kind of makes sense as a criticism. Now, the problem I have is, though I don't support Theresa May's Chequers plan, is how on earth do the Brexiteers think they're going to resolve this same problem? Because it's all well and good saying we don't want Brussels to have an indefinite decision as to how long they keep open this temporary agreement that we stay in the customs union until we resolve the Northern Ireland border question. They're demanding that Britain has a veto over when we can just pull out of that temporary arrangement over that customs union. But of course, from the European Union's perspective, why would they ever agree to that? Why would they say, okay, you guys can have the veto for how long this customs arrangement lasts, and we, as the European Union, will risk the breakup of our union and the complete turmoil in the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland when you decide. If you turn the tables, the same problem that the Brexiteers have with Theresa May's agreement, if the Brexiteers got what they want, then there's a red line for the European Union on their side. How on earth would they hand over the decision to Britain to decide when to arbitrarily withdraw from that customs union without any negotiation? And so it's a red line on either side. It is, in effect, it is what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. Neither side can budge on this question, and that brings me back to the origins of the problem here, which is Brexiteers saying, oh, we never said it was going to be easy. Well, you did say it was going to be easy. You told all of us it was going to be easy. We tried to argue that it would not be easy. It would actually be collective suicide. And that's what it looks like at the moment. German car companies are panicking. You got the Netherlands and other countries in the north of Europe that would suffer potentially up to 3% a hit in their GDP if we don't get this resolved soon. And of course, you've got international firms based here in the UK that are panicking. The pound has never been lower since the referendum against the dollar than it is currently. And you told us this was going to be easy. It is an intractable problem because it is one of those classic cases of an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object. When you get to this point where both sides have a red line that would be political suicide for them to cross, it makes absolutely no sense. It is the literal definition of a deadlock. That is where we are. And it all comes down to where the union of the European Union stops and where the United Kingdom begins. Because we never resolved the Northern Ireland question. We never resolved the Troubles. The only reason we have peace in Northern Ireland is because we sidestepped the question of where the United Kingdom begins and the European Union starts. We sidestepped it by joining the European Union. So, for the life of me, I can't understand how, if even the Good Friday Agreement doesn't resolve the question of where the United Kingdom ends and where the Republic of Ireland begins, how on earth is Brexit going to bring a solution within the space of a few months to that great question? That great question which has led to a terrible conflict for many, many years on these soils. If you think we didn't resolve it then, you think we're going to suddenly resolve it by electing Boris Johnson as leader of the Conservative Party, or indeed David Davis making his opening gambit in the Sunday Times today? How on earth are they going to resolve this question? It's never been resolved. And so I think the trouble subsided largely because of the sidestepping of the problem by saying, hey, we're all now members of the same club. It doesn't matter, Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, because there's no border between you now anyway, which is what placated the fears. So how would any Conservative government deal with the DUP, deal with the Sinn Féin, deal with the Republic of Ireland and fix that question? It isn't a solvable one to my mind. And so what happens next? Well, I think the Brexit proposals that Theresa May brought that are the Chequers plan isn't going to satisfy anyone. David Davis, of course, has made it very clear that he won't be satisfied, and nor will Brexiteers, with us staying in the customs union and until the Northern Ireland border issue is resolved. And so what it looks like is that Theresa May well come back from Brussels with some form of tentative and very weak agreement from Brussels, signalling that they may well be prepared to back her. And all the while she gets here, by the time she gets back, the Conservatives are ready to dismiss her as leader of their party and elect a new Prime Minister. They would then have to start all over again in attempting to resolve the question that even the Good Friday Agreement didn't resolve. I don't see how that's going to be possible. I see no solution here. No solution. And I know people are going to phone up and say, Maajid, we voted for Brexit, deliver us Brexit. Fine. Walk me through it. Talk me through how you're going to fix this problem. The problem that even Tony Blair couldn't fix with all his mandate and with all his election victories. The problem of where the United Kingdom begins and where the Republic of Ireland ends. Tell me how you're going to fix that problem. David Davis today calls for a cabinet uprising against Theresa May over Brexit, as MPs and ministers said they are ready to oust her if she does not change course. Has Theresa May reached the end of the road? We're going to go, I should give you the number, shouldn't I? 0345 60973. I just saw the board is already full, and I thought I didn't have to give you the number, but I actually should, in case some of you want to keep trying. 0345 60973, or text us on 84850, or tweet us at LBC, or tweet me directly at Maajid Nawaz, and we're going to go to Sean on the line from Durham. Speak to us, Sean.
Hi, Maajid. I tell you what it is, son. I am sick and tired of this, This is doing this country no good at all.
No.
The Tories have no clue. You know, we need a general election, son, to get somebody into power that can sort this out, because the Tories, they're evil. The Tories are evil, And evil.
Do you know, Sean, that David Davis, in his column today, says that a general election is highly unlikely. He says it's completely bogus, in fact. He says
because they're petrified, because they won't get back into power.
Well, hold on, Sean. He says, I'll tell you what he says. He says, a general election can happen only with a 2/3 majority of the House of Commons, or if the government passes a vote of no confidence in itself. Since no Conservative MP is likely to risk a Corbyn government, that is hardly going to happen. So how do you think practically it can happen?
Surely there should be a vote of no confidence, because this Tory government's just bringing the country down to the toilet, man.
Well, I'll tell you.
You know what I mean? I think they're evil. They're evil half-wits.
They are
the evil half-wits.
John, if Philip Hammond's budget is rejected because of the Chequers deal, if even Tory MPs rebel against Philip Hammond's budget, then that could be a way to trigger a vote of no confidence in Theresa May's government. But that may not necessarily be a general election. If they replaced Theresa May, then you may end up with just a new Prime Minister.
Why do that? That's twice. That's it. You know, they keep on doing it, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You cannot change your Prime Minister and turn around and say, "Oh, we don't want her." You've got to have someone that's really going to put the country back on its feet. You know what I mean? She is just I cannot stand the half-wits.
Well,
I cannot stand it.
Sean, tell me this then: if there were a Labour government, what would your view? How would you like negotiations to transpire?
Well, for a start, they'll start and get the sick people back. You know, what they're due to and to get rid of this universal credit that's crippling
No,
people
but on the
country.
Brexit question, Sean, on the Brexit question.
On the Brexit credit.
Yeah.
I voted Brexit.
Yeah.
But I wish I never did.
Wow.
Because it's diabolical, man.
Yeah, it's a nightmare, isn't it? It seems like there's no solution here, Sean.
I love Ireland, right?
Yeah.
And I tell you what it is. If they cripple Ireland, mate, I'll tell you what, I'll cripple her, like.
No, okay. Well, we're not going to no threats of violence to anyone here, but thanks for calling in, Sean. Obviously you meant metaphorically. We're going to go to Robert on the line from Dulwich.
Hi, Maajid. I think that you're saying, what's the way through here? Is there a way through? Is that fundamentally what you're saying?
Yes, I mean, Davis's critique is quite on target, to be honest, but the solutions are bereft.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think that we see Rees-Mogg being a lot stronger yesterday. He's normally, he is a very polite man, and he's always supportive of the Prime Minister, but now we're getting to the final stages, and it always ramps up in the last stages of negotiation. And he's coming, and, Davis is being very forthright. Basically, here's the call to arms. Are we going to see the 48 letters be put forward to the 1922 committee?
Yeah.
The idea...
Well, there's only 4 left that need to be... For this, basically, they've got 44 in already, roughly.
I know, they say this, but who knows? But the point is, it looks like it's heading that way. I don't think... all this talk of a people's referendum and a second vote, and we have to have a general election. Look, the fact is, you just have to go with the rules. The Fixed Term Parliament Act, the Conservatives aren't going to vote for themselves for a no confidence vote in themselves, and you need 2/3 of the House.
That's what David Davis says in his column.
Look, it's not going to happen.
Well, I tell you, but wait. Can I just propose something to you, Robert?
Yeah.
That means a general election isn't going to happen. I think, again, David Davis may well be correct that why would the Tories vote for the 2/3 with Parliament to actually get rid of the government and call for a general election if it risks a Corbyn government, right? So he's correct there, right? That's
yes.
He's asking us why would the Tories do that to themselves, even over Brexit? And of course, he said, why would the Tories vote a motion of no confidence in their own government, again precipitating an election, risking Corbyn getting into power? But what if this, Robert? What if, because of the 44 letters, if Theresa May sees blood on the horizon, if she sees that the sharks are coming for her, what if to sidestep that, she calls a people's vote on her deal?
Well, she could do that. I don't see what she would actually have to gain from it. I'll tell you what she would gain from it. I'll tell you what she'd gain from it, Robert. Because imagine this, right? And of course, Prime Minister has the power to decide these things, but I imagine, again, maybe Parliament would decide the question. But imagine the question was, accept Chequers or stay in, right? Imagine it, just hypothetically, follow my argument through, because if Theresa May wanted to stay Prime Minister, if she wanted to stay Prime Minister, the best way for her to do it, if she saw, the sharks coming for her and knew that there won't be a general election, but there may well be a Tory leadership challenge, but if her survival instinct is that strong, she could say, right, I'm going to put it to the nation, accept Chequers or stay in the European Union. Because out of those two questions, if the public rejected Chequers, which the majority do, and a plurality of the public voted to stay in the European Union, because, of course, that question excludes the hard Brexit option, if we stayed in the European Union, Theresa May's position as Prime Minister, or indeed if we accepted Chequers out of one of those two questions, her position as Prime Minister surely becomes stronger. I tell you, do you know what the problem with that is, Maajid? This then goes beyond Brexit. This goes to, are we a country that fundamentally believes in the democratic principle? Because as far as I can see, believing in that democratic principle is far more important than being part of a political union.
Yeah. But Robert, here's the that is the controversial line that you just uttered there, which I'm not sure people caught. Believing in the democratic principle is more important than the political union. Do you mean the Union of the United Kingdom?
No, the political union within Europe. Look, you can always do a deal on a union, you can always enter into agreements and all the rest of it. Establishing democracy in your country and a rule of law and as a bedrock for financial stability and the jobs and the prosperity and all the rest of it, all that is built on democracy. Look, what you're suggesting would take the Tories down a road that I think you could see the Tories just destroyed at the next 3 elections.
Here's the other problem, Robert, is that at the end of the day, if the Brexiteers get where they want. And I hear people when they say the public will be outraged if we don't deliver on Brexit. But I know that, I see that, but I can tell you what I know for a fact, because it's not theory, that the public may or may not do something, because we already know it's already happened, is Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland will be outraged if we fudge that question or put a border between Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And there we know already there's been an armed uprising, so that doesn't even require seeing in a crystal ball. We know the history of the Troubles.
Yes.
And so you've got to face that off with that.
That border in Northern Ireland and Ireland, to my opinion, it has been weaponised disgustingly by the EU. The EU have sat back and watched.
Yeah, but they're playing politics, Robert. That's what playing politics means. What did we expect?
Tell me where in the Belfast Agreement it stipulates that you cannot have an electronic border. There is no stipulation in Belfast 98 that means that we couldn't have a border that worked, that was frictionless. There is nothing in it. Or if there is, tell me the paragraph, because I read through it. It doesn't exist. This has been weaponised. This has been taken to a point, and because people don't do the research, the border in Northern Ireland is a non-issue. It is soluble.
Robert, every border conflict, every ethnic conflict, every national conflict, and every religious conflict is weaponised. The point is, we're dealing with what we're dealing with. At the end of the day, there has been an armed insurgency in Northern Ireland, which there hasn't been in mainland England. And so when Brexiteers say, if we don't deliver on Brexit, there will be outrage, I can assure you there will be more outrage in Northern Ireland, because recent history tells us so. And we've got to handle that situation sensitively.
But you know what you're saying effectively?
Yeah.
You're actually saying that Irish people are so stupid that they will actually take up arms because there'll be cameras measuring the traffic as it crosses the road.
That's not what I'm saying at all. Actually, that's less of the Cathy business there, please, Robert. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm suggesting is, at the end of the day, you've got political parties who will weaponise the conflict. They will not make it about the electronic technology that you claim exists. I don't know, frankly, so I'll defer to you on that. I don't know whether the technology is there or not. But what I'm saying is the conflict between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland was probably, if not for it being weaponised, always a minor conflict. I mean, were they really fighting over being Catholic and Protestant? No. Were they really fighting over, can anyone, if you line them, just look at them, do they look differently? No. But of course the conflict got weaponised. Every conflict gets weaponised, Robert. Now we've got to deal with that.
But then you're saying that people are going to weaponise this in any case, and therefore the solution is possible, but we still shouldn't have a proper Brexit because people are going to abuse it.
No, I'm asking Brexiteers for a solution. I don't see one.
Well, no, the solution is to just go to law. Always go to law. You say the border gets put in place. It's a technological solution. There's already a border there anyway. We know that on duties and the different currency and tax rates and all the rest of it. The border is put in place. The free trade agreement is done with Canada plus, and we save our 40 billion. And then that 40 billion becomes a contingency, and we use it because there will be bumps as you go. There are going to be winners and losers in Brexit. There's no doubt. If you're importing a lot and the currency plummets, your imports become more expensive. But because we import so much and our trade deficit is therefore very high, it'll be good for the country to reduce that and export more. But this needs to be managed properly.
Robert, I'm going to last thing because we've got to go to the news headlines. But I'm going to read to you. I mean, tweeter I am Incorrigible has put in capital letters, the technology does not exist. There is no border anywhere in the world that has the technology solution Robert claims is available. So, do you have any proof that you said the technology exists?
No, Maajid, I have got no doubt. You know what I want?
I know you've got no doubt, but I want you to convince me, because I've said to you I don't know.
Well, no, I'd love to see the investment. I would love to see the government building and beta testing in the environment and saying, we've built this, and actually, guess what? It's so good, the Norwegians and the Swedes actually want to...
Oh, so you agree it doesn't exist at the moment?
We need to tech up. The West needs to get more technology.
Do you agree that it doesn't exist at the moment, Robert, the technology?
Well, currently the platform doesn't exist. Now, the solution hasn't been written. But that's a question of code.
All right, thank you. All right, Robert. Thank you very much anyway. Thanks. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's been civil, so thank you for that. But I think I'm with I am Incorrigible there on he's quite good on the European Union stuff, he is, and he's incessant doesn't. I don't know where he gets the time from. I know he's always tweeting in at James's show as well. But anyway, thanks for that conversation. If the technology doesn't exist, as you've just admitted, then it's a huge gamble to take upon the future resolution of a conflict in Northern Ireland that's been raging for years. And you want to gamble that whole piece there over a technology that doesn't yet exist? I'm not so sure. Good afternoon. It's Maajid Nawaz here on LBC. David Davis today has called for a cabinet uprising against Theresa May over Brexit, as MPs and ministers said they're ready to oust her if she does not change course. Has Theresa May reached the end of the road? Every time I utter that sentence, I feel tempted to sing the song, but I won't. Does anyone know that song? You know them? Yeah. 0345 60 60 973. We're going to David on the line from Hammersmith. Speak to us, David.
Good afternoon. My feeling, I just get a bit frustrated about hearing what Labour are going to do, what Tories are going to do, what David Davis is going to do, what all of them are going to do, because they're all suffering from a misconception that they are in control. The EU is going to do what the EU wants to do, and that is demonstrated very clearly by the first thing they said when they opened up the negotiations, which was, we want 40 billion. And what for? Oh, well, we want 40 billion, that's it. We want that, and until you agree that, we're not even going to discuss anything else. And really, they're acting against their own people.
And of course, David Davis makes a point in his column today, David, that if we pay that money, the 39 billion, if we pay it before reaching an agreement with them as to how our trade will look like after Brexit, then we've paid money into what did he call it? He called it a pig in a poke. Right?
Yeah,
he says we're paying money into a black hole. And so
I don't think we should pay it. I think I
But if we don't pay it, Dave, I mean, we're back to square one, aren't we? Because you just said that the European Union wouldn't move on until we first agree to that term.
Yes, but the point is this. May thinks she's got this deal and that they're going to agree to it. They're not going to agree to it. They're going to agree to possibly, if they want to, and they even work against their own constituent members here, because they are a bureaucratic organisation that cares about the organisation, not their constituent members. But what they will do is they will say, well, we'll give you this Canada thing, and we'll throw in a bit of that if you want. We'll allow you this transitional thing that we do for Turkey, and so on and so forth. But they'll do what the hell they want. This idea, when I hear members of the opposition, and to be honest, yourself this morning, suggesting that May will do a so-called people's vote. The people already voted. May is never going to do that because it's got a sneaky little, I want to remain in the European Union.
Yeah, but so what, David, if the people have... What does that mean? The people have already voted. It's like people utter these... Hold on, David, hold on. People utter these platitudes as if they mean something. It means... it means diddly squat, David, that the people have already voted, because unless you have a practical solution forward, then the people might have to vote again.
I didn't choose the moniker, the people's vote. The campaign funded...
No, hold on. Address the question, please. Unless you have a practical way forward, the people may well have to vote again.
I don't think that we have a choice in this matter, first of all, because the EU will do what it wants. And it will be... I'll tell you what it will be. It will be a take it or leave it option that they give us. And having tried to wear us down for 2 years, the 40 billion the price of the 40 billion will only be worth paying if we want a 2-year transition agreement, or we could actually say, you know what, for that 40 billion, we'll subsidise and support all the organisations that are badly affected by a very sharp Brexit, and we'll just leave on the 29th of March. And I think that's the way it's going. But David, nothing you've said.
The way it's going is bad for everybody, and I'm sure you'd agree with that. And B, nothing you said proposes a practical and sensible alternative. Now, my view would be, let's stay in, right? Because what you and I both agree is what the current situation is horrible for everyone. But unless you can bring me something better, and I'm pragmatic enough to be open-minded enough to consider it, but bring me something better. Tell me what your solution is.
Okay. Well, here's the problem. Whether we say people were ignorant about what they were voting for, whether we say that this side were lying and that side were lying, I look at it very simply. We had a document put to a very pro-Remain document put to our door, and it persuaded me to decide, well, Remain is the best option. But what I respect more than anything is the democracy of our country. And I don't think that you can say, just because somebody's a lorry driver there and they didn't consider all of the options, that they are somehow less valid as their vote. So my attitude is that we have to...
Move to solutions, please, David, because none of that has any relevance to the question I asked you.
No, but what I'm saying is that we're always going to be stuck with whatever solution you want to come up with.
No, I'm asking you to come up with a solution because...
I'm trying to. What we're always going to be stuck with is that the people, the voters of the UK voted for Brexit. Now, the percentage is wrong. The percentage is very close, and because of that, May has tried to reflect that. She's trying to cover, to reflect that vote. When she keeps saying...
David, we've been waiting here for a minute while you've been speaking, while I asked you to propose a solution. You're describing the past again.
We don't have a solution.
There we are.
The EU is the one who's going to offer the solution, not you, not the Labour Party.
The EU is going to offer the solution? Hang on a minute. Whenever you go into a negotiation, you've got to go in knowing what your red lines are and what your demands are and what your ideal scenario is. You can't just wait for them to give you a solution and say, all right, because obviously they're not going to give you a solution in your interests.
Well, we had red lines, and what happened to those?
No, David, I'm asking you, as somebody who's calling in, because I've told you the solution is we scrap the whole thing and stay in, right? What is your solution?
If they would allow us to stay in under the previous terms, that's not even certain.
Well, but the thing is, we haven't Brexited yet. We haven't Brexited yet, and I'm quite sure...
We've exercised Article 50. They could turn around, if they want to, and say, well, you can stay in, but you don't have this veto, or you can stay in, but you have...
David, what's your solution, please? That's now 2 minutes. We're 2 minutes, 30 seconds in. What's your solution?
My point is they are in control. I have no solution because they are the ones who have to offer it.
So no, but what... They will offer what if person A divorces person B and person B brings a settlement for the divorce terms, half the house, half the whatever. You can't go in without a clue as to what's acceptable to you and just.
But that's what
just
they did. They said with no
but David, say David is you, David from Hammersmith are leading now the negotiation. What would you envision is the future of the relationship that we have with the European Union?
I think it's going to be messy whatever it happens because they are in control and they'll do what they want.
I think you've just defined it for us because you don't have a solution and I'm yet to hear from somebody that does and that's why I think the whole thing is a mess and we should stay in and perhaps a people's vote can secure that for us. But Richard wants to speak to us from Manchester. Go for it, Richard.
Hello, Maajid. Thank you very much indeed for having me on. It's a great show, very exciting times. I was listening to Rees-Mogg down south yesterday, and it was a very, very good rallying speech, and I wish we could say, you and I together, choose him as the new guy to take us through. That's not possible at the moment. David Davis had the cojones to get out when he knew Ollie Robbins behind his back and May and whoever were planning to have another plan instead of his, which he'd worked hard on. And that was diabolical. They're all trying to take, including the Blairites, they're all trying to take the acolytes of we sorted all the trouble out in Ireland for everybody and we stopped the war. Believe me, Maajid, I'm 75 now. There was only one person who stopped all that nonsense, and that was Mo Mowlam. And she came out at the end of the day, she gave her life for it. She got cancer and she died because of it. And now you've got these, I can only call them idiots, saying, I was there, I did this, I did that. I have relations in Ireland. The people don't want another war. You said this morning on your programme that the EEC, the EU, had used that thing in Ireland, a political thing to say there's going to be a war in Ireland to stop us from leaving the EU. And I agree completely with you. And I think it's terrible. And if May doesn't go there, and you were asking your last caller for a solution, I think it's got to be a hard Brexit.
Well, a hard Brexit, you mean reverting to World Trade Organization rules?
Exactly, Maajid.
With no deal?
With no deal.
And do you know what that entails, Richard?
I've been listening avidly. I'm not the most intelligent guy in the world, but I know one thing. Once we get to be trading with the other people throughout the world, we had Obama came and said, don't come out because you're going to go to the end of the queue. Now we have this new president saying, I will give you a $1 trillion deal immediately come out, and Nigel Farage has been pushing that It's very, very, very complicated.
So, Richard, and by the way, apart from the practicalities or the practical difficulties of the World Trade Organization rules, which means, by the way, that we end up with no deal with any single country in the world until we negotiate independently with every single country for a deal, which means we'll have a period of absolutely no deal with anyone. Apart from that, it does mean, of course, you're aware, a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland, which means the end of the Good Friday Agreement.
Well, the end of the Good Friday Agreement is not the end of the world. The people, the Catholics and the Protestants, they're not after another war in Northern Ireland and in Southern Ireland.
Well, as long as you're aware that calling for a no deal means a hard border between the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland, as long as you're aware of that, because I know Brexiteers often call up and threaten us with pitchforks if we don't respect the referendum result. But, of course, I can tell you there's more than pitchforks going on in Northern Ireland.
There is more than that, you think?
There's certainly more than pitchforks in Northern Ireland. We know from recent history.
No, recent history as well. 20 years ago.
Richard, what has there been any conflict on our soils apart from the conflict in Northern Ireland? So when Brexiteers threaten us with pitchforks, I mean, the actual only conflict that's actually flared is the one they want to ignore, which is the one in Northern Ireland.
But I've not heard any Brexiteer come on here and threaten pitchforks or guns or
lots
whatever.
of them have all the time, Richard. They do it all the time, but it doesn't matter. We won't get into that now because we're up against the clock. But thank you for calling in. You're listening to Maajid Nawaz here on LBC, and the time is 12:47. Lots of you trying to get through to me on this topic, so I'll go straight back to the calls. Jason wants to speak to us from Westminster. Tell us what you think, Jason.
Hi, Maajid. How are you?
I'm all right. Tell us what you think.
Good. First of all, you're far more diplomatic than I would be. I'm a Remainer. Really interesting. I think the whole thing thus far with the Conservatives has been a greater interest in how to keep their own party together than what's best for the country. And I think that many people like myself were saying from the very beginning that it will only ever be a hard Brexit or no Brexit. And I think that what you said about Theresa May, the possibility of her going to the people, is a very serious possibility, and one that we have been discussing, we branches within the Labour Party. I'm a member of the Labour Party. And it is a very serious option. And I think that as time progresses now, you will see more and more movement from the Labour Party, the rank and file particularly, but also the upper echelons of the party, moving more and more in support of a people's vote. And I think that is the only way out of this impasse.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and I think actually Theresa May may well come to, no pun intended, Theresa may well come to see this as an option, because if she, and as she has done, basically pinned her entire credibility onto the Chequers plan, which then gets rejected by Brexiteers within her own party, the only option she may well have to ensure her own survival is to go to the people. And of course, then that gives us, we Remainers, an opportunity when it is put to the people to basically campaign with the people to say, well, this deal's rubbish, let's stay in. That may well be the only practical course left for the Prime Minister.
And I think that's absolutely right. And I think her survival instincts are such, and the Conservative history is such, that they will try and hang on to power come what may. And if I can say something else, please, about the border with Ireland. I don't live in the UK anymore. I'm just visiting at the moment. Right. But you still know me as Jason in Westminster. I live in a candidate country which has incredible preferential arrangements with the EU. I live in Montenegro.
Yeah.
And when I'm travelling to Croatia, because I live just 5 kilometres from the border, so I go to Dubrovnik quite often. When I'm travelling through that border, the problems and the queues of trucks is extraordinary.
Yeah.
When you're on the border of the EU, the red tape is really quite extraordinary.
And that's what they want to do to Northern Ireland.
Well, yeah, exactly. And, it might not be for me specifically, because I have my Montenegrin ID, I have my British passport, I drive my British car, blah, blah, blah. I'm not non-European, but I have to wait with those in line. And if a truck is coming through, and we sent a 7-ton truck from here down to there with all our furniture and stuff a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
It went from London all the way to the border of Croatia and Montenegro without getting stopped. And then it was held up for 36 hours.
Yeah.
And they went through every single item that had to be, on the inventory and, check that it was legitimate and not new and no tax and blah, 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 blah. It's really, really quite complicated if you're not in the EU. Now, being a Remainer doesn't mean that I think that the EU doesn't need reforming. I think it drastically needs reforming in so many, many ways.
Of course. I'm with you there.
But we can only do that from being inside the tent.
Yeah.
And, Maajid, people aren't even talking about this aspect of Brexit. I live in the New Europe, okay? The New Europe really always looked upon the UK as an aspirational and inspirational place, the mother of all democracies. They aspired to be like us.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I see, I hear, I read statements from people like Orban or the government in Slovakia or the Czech Republic or Latvia or Lithuania or any of the other parts of New Europe who are embarking upon policies which are not in line with the European ethos and, anti-immigrant policies and so on and so forth. And time again, the response of these politicians when asked is, look, Britain is taking power back, inverted commas. We're just following the greatest democracy in Europe. This, the right has always been there in Europe.
Yeah, it doesn't bode well, does it, Jason? But thank you for that. But of course, it's unfortunately, if people are going to basically try and take our lead on issues like this, we see where that's headed with increasing autocrats in Europe, increasing their power in the name of national self-determination. I'm going to read a text here from someone called Deb, just to make a point. It says, then, Maajid, if a people's vote get to stay in, what do you expect the people who voted out would do? Roll over? I don't think so. And this is the problem I have with people. It happens all the time, issuing veiled threats that if we don't respect the Brexit referendum, then they're going to basically, the veiled threat there is that they're going to rise up in arms. At the end of the day, it's very easy. It's very easy for both sides to play that game, which is why it's actually a dangerous game to play, because people that are insisting on a hard Brexit, as I've said earlier on in this show, that means a hard border between Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland. And I can assure you, if you're going to threaten pitchforks, then there's one place in this country where that threat's actually been delivered on, and it is in Northern Ireland. And so it won't serve you well threatening being up in arms if the Brexit referendum isn't respected, if your solution is to just further fuel the conflict in somewhere that's already been up in arms. It's a contradiction in your thinking that I suggest you do well to actually focus on. Ava wants to speak to us from Kingston. Go for it, Ava.
Hi. All my comment was going to be that Theresa May is talking about the people and their vote. Now, I've lived here for 30 years and I come from Australia. Over there, voting is compulsory. Voting is not compulsory in this country. Make it a compulsory vote for everybody at this point in time, because I think at the time the referendum was done, people really weren't aware of what they were voting for, lies left, right and centre. Now that people know, make it a second referendum, but make it compulsory for everyone to vote. Then you will have a true idea of what the people actually want. I have no solution to the problem at the moment as it stands, but I do agree with you about the hard borders with Ireland. So, I've written to my local MP and suggested this compulsory voting in this country. Australia is not the only country in the world that has compulsory voting. Lots of countries do. Then you will get a true referendum of what everybody in the country want.
Yeah, all right,
Not
Ava.
just a minimal.
All right, of course,
minimal.
there is, thank you very much for calling in, there is the option of compulsory voting, and of course, something should never have been put to the vote in the first place, and all it's done is divide the country incessantly for the last 2 years, and with no solution in sight, may I add. Of course, we've been discussing it for an hour. I asked people to ring in and give me a solution, and surprise, surprise, nobody could. And that's why the whole thing is a mess.
We move on now to something completely different. A story that